Hello and welcome to another episode of Wisdom Wednesday. I'm Dr. Ben.
And I'm Dr. Susanna.
And we are both naturopathic doctors who empower you to heal yourself through whole food, plant-based nutrition, and mind-body medicine. And today we're talking about the third chakra a little bit more. It's showing up again. We kind of got introduced to the energy of the solar plexus and digestion and metabolism from an energetic perspective when we talked about the stomach. Of course, it is concerning our small intestine and large intestine too. You know, that solar plexus, I guess just to speak to it anatomically first, is really just a bundle of nerves that get sent off to organs such as the stomach, the small intestine, the large intestine, also the liver and the gallbladder. But today we're really focusing on the pancreas, which has more of the endocrine function. Of course, we know that our chakra system is really aligned with endocrine organs. And all of these endocrine organs, all of these energy centers have energetic, emotional, spiritual implications. So we're going to be talking about the opportunities that exist for us concerning digestive and metabolic issues. And really how to optimize our pancreatic function from that energetic perspective. In addition, we can't forget about the nutritional lifestyle perspective, which of course we talked all about, you know, the foods and the food combining and digestion, metabolism, digestive enzymes, etc. This week in Medicinal Monday, episode 341. So go back and refresh yourself with that information after you hear this energetic stuff today.
Yeah. And I'm super excited to dive into the discussion about the third chakra. But before then, I always like to just talk about that more physiological connection between the nervous system and whatever organ we're talking about each week. And so when we talk about, that brain pancreas connection, we see how the state of the nervous system directly affects are both the exocrine and the endocrine function of the pancreas, right? So our ability to digest and produce digestive enzymes, but also our ability to metabolize, to produce the insulin that's needed to get our fuel, our glucose into the cell for proper metabolism.
Right. So, of course, autonomic nervous system, the signals being sent between our brain and our vital organs. It's a two-way street. And when we're under that sympathetic stress response, all of our digestive organs, digestive functions are shut down, and the energy, the circulatory system, all of the resources are shunted more to our periphery, to our extremities, to our muscles, so that we can literally survive. But when it concerns our, the interesting thing about blood sugar regulation and metabolism is that, of course, we know that the stress response kind of shunts energy away from the digestive system. But in doing so, we also have a surge in cortisol. Our cortisol levels rise, which actually helps to mobilize blood sugar and raise our blood sugar independent of any food that we might have eaten. For example, breaking down storage forms of sugar in our body, like glycogen in our muscles and our liver. And this, spikes our blood sugar again, so that we have the energy and resources to survive. And this is a really good thing. This is obviously an adaptive survival mechanism that has allowed us to escape and evade harm's way. But this stress response, we know, is being activated for a lot of people in a low-grade fashion or moderate-grade fashion every day. And that's simply not what it's designed to be used for. And of course, the implications for that are hyperglycemia, high blood sugar, and that requires then higher levels of pancreatic function in terms of the endocrine organ side of things, secreting more insulin so that blood sugar stays regulated. And then, of course, that all creates increased risk for chronic blood sugar dysregulation, pre-diabetes, type 2 diabetes, etc.
Definitely. Yes. So that's important. We cannot forget the physiological connection between our nervous system and all of our organs. But moving on to this energetic discussion about the third chakra. And the third chakra as you're saying, is associated with all of our, well, many of our digestive organs, pancreas being the main endocrine organ that it's associated with. And energetically, the third chakra is associated with our energy center of personal power and self-esteem and confidence.
Yeah.
Our sense of self, put in another way. And, whenever I think about the chakras and the energetics of the chakras, I think about, how we try to achieve balance in the expression of that energy center. And for some people, there can be an overexpression of the energy from a chakra or an underexpression, or an overactive chakra or an underactive chakra.
Yeah, well, actually, the way that, I know that you've got these notes here, or, showing these signs or symptoms of an overactive third chakra versus an underactive third chakra. But my kind of feeling around the topic here is that oftentimes, generally speaking, it's like deficiency. Generally speaking, it's, energy deficiency of this part of the body. And then we can overcompensate in ways to try to inauthentically, unhealthfully, unsustainably bring balance to this energetic body. But it comes down to just authentic self-expression. So, I don't really personally resonate so much with like overactive, underactive versus, I think it's mainly just like energetic deficiency, energetic imbalance, and then the ways that we might consciously or subconsciously try and compensate for this energetic deficiency.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with that for sure. And that's definitely what we see more of clinically, are kind of the manifestations of a deficiency of this energy, right? We see pancreatic insufficiency, right? We see, situations where maybe the pancreas isn't keeping up with proper insulin production, maybe per se. I think more so the
Yeah, I was just talking about like, how.
Well, let's talk about what the energetics are.
Yeah.
Because the kind of the signs of an underactive third chakra or a third chakra kind of deficiency is lack of confidence, lack of self-esteem, indecisiveness, helplessness, lack of purpose. So there's really this disconnection with like the core of who am I and what is my value. And yeah, I think that this is huge. I mean, you said that it has to do with kind of self-expression. I would argue self-expression has to do more with like, different chakras. And the third chakra is really about that personal connection we have with our sense of worth, our sense of power, and who we are.
Yeah, well, from kind of an energy anatomy, energy body perspective, it's commonly understood how the flow of energy kind of rises within us, from our core root chakra up from the first, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth. You're talking about kind of the energy of self-expression being more around like the fourth and fifth chakra. But of course, like how is that energy going to get there in a healthy, strong, authentic sort of way if there's this imbalance in the third chakra? So, it's like all about kind of, the flow upward in a healthy, authentic sort of way. So confidence, self-esteem, clear decision-making, being secure and being connected with our purpose for existing on planet Earth, which is, of course, just to know ourselves and express ourselves and share our gifts and explore and understand who we are. And yeah, you've got these notes here around like these signs of an overactive third chakra, which again, I don't really resonate with like a third chakra energy being overactive as much as just imbalance. And then we can compensate for these imbalances. So these signs include, desire for control, being overly critical, being excessively stubborn, having aggression or anger, and having judgment. So, I think that like all of these, the way that I relate with these qualities, it's like, if we're lacking that self-esteem, if we're lacking that confidence, if we're feeling disconnected, then we might have a tendency to react in these sort of ways and express these kind of imbalances energetically or emotionally. And all that being said, I don't think that, like, having anger is inherently a pathologic thing or something that needs fixing or something that, means that you're imbalanced or anything like that. Having, criticism, having judgment, like, these are all parts of being human, but it's a matter of, being in balance with that, having that self-awareness and understanding, and coming from a place of, just ultimately returning to that place of groundedness and not swinging in these extreme ways when we're, in a way to try and compensate for these deeper imbalances that might exist.
Yeah. So then I guess the next question is, how how can one connect with authentic self-esteem and confidence and their sense of worth and, their connection with their purpose in a very true way, not in a way where, they're overcompensating or they're kind of faking it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really the question.
Well, I think, if I were to answer that question, it just comes down to knowing ourselves. And when we know ourselves and, like, our true selves, our true nature, we know how divinely perfect and powerful and amazingly loving and compassionate and sensitive and connected we inherently are. And the only thing that creates this false sense of separation, this delusion that we're something less than our true nature, is just our insecure thoughts that we believe to be true. So it's simply, from my perspective, how do we kind of connect with our authentic power? It's really just it's like our authentic power for each one of us. It's already there. The only thing that leads us to think otherwise are the insecure thoughts. And, from our perspective, it's so helpful to understand what those insecure thoughts are. They're just a consequence of the human experience. They're just kind of this paradoxical nature of who we are, in this world, but not of this world. Like, we have so much more, like, our true nature is not the passing, fleeting human experience. It's beyond that. So that's not to neglect our thoughts. That's not to say that thoughts don't mean anything and our feelings don't mean anything. But it's to have that understanding that we are the backdrop on which these thoughts, emotions, experiences are felt and brought to life. And when we see that, immense, vast nature of who we truly are, we just naturally develop more awe and understanding and compassion. And also, it's like, from that space, obviously, we're more tuned into that flow of creativity, to that flow of wisdom, to that flow of the universe, and that flow of just all the infinite possibilities. And it's like, holy cow, that person who I might idolize, or who seems successful and powerful and like they're courageous and confident, like, that person that we project and see in the world, and, oh, if only I could be that, if only I could do that, we realize we are that. We are doing that, and we can do that, but the only thing that's getting in the way is just those silly, insecure thoughts, again, which are so natural and normal part of the human experience. But it's, so it's kind of this paradoxical thing.
Yeah, and those silly thoughts that keep us from fully knowing, like, our full self, it might have been like this saga, this story, this lie that we've been telling ourselves for years and years and years, right? So sometimes it can be really, really hard to see and identify.
Yeah, you're talking about the more ingrained thoughts that we could say are beliefs or belief systems,
Right.
which still, it's like, they're still made up of the same stuff, the same, like there's no substance to them, that ingrained belief is still in a moment able to be lifted and transformed, and we are able to be, to transcend that belief or
Right.
that thought process.
Yeah, just because it's like a more habitual thought pattern doesn't mean that it's any harder to see through and call out and really see, like, wow, this isn't true. This is literally just formless energy that I've been buying
Yeah.
into year after year. Yeah, no, I think everything you said was beautiful and spot on. And
Yeah.
I
Thank you.
I found it really interesting in preparing for this episode. I opened up a book by Carolyn Myss, Anatomy of a Spirit, and she has a section where she talks about the chakras. And so I was reading a little bit about third chakra in her book, and some of the themes she talks about and talking about balancing the third chakra. And I really like what she had to say, and many of it echoes like what you were just saying, Ben. But I kind of could boil down everything she was saying into like 3 key points. And the first point, to help kind of connect with that third chakra and balance that third chakra energy, first was to really honor oneself. And in honoring oneself, she was saying, like, really honoring your gut instincts, that we violate ourselves. She went as far as to say we violate ourselves when we go against our gut instincts. And I thought that that was a really powerful thing to say because, as you're saying, Ben, it's like who we are at our core is this like infinitely wise divine being, right? And we are connected with this infinite source of wisdom and guidance. And when we start, ignoring our instincts, when we start outsourcing and relying on other people to, decide for us, make decisions for us, help, it's okay to reach out for help, of course, but, that's different from, outsourcing our power, right? Outsourcing power. And so I really like how she was saying, when we really connect with our gut and trust the gut and honor the gut, that is one way that we can really help to bring balance to that energetic center. She also talked about self-respect. And I mean, I feel like everything you talked about, Ben, in kind of recognizing and acknowledging our true nature as this divine being is the same as self-respect.
When we understand who we truly are, it's kind of impossible. It doesn't make sense to have disrespect for oneself. It doesn't make sense to have chronic self-judgment, to have chronic thoughts of unworthiness, to not honor ourselves. It doesn't make sense. It's like, not honoring a tree, because it's like, that's not a good nature or a good example. But it's like when we see who we truly are, all of these things, honor, respect, and maintaining our power, like all of these things are just inherent natural byproduct consequence of just knowing who we are.
Yeah.
And I think that's, just as I'm reflecting on it here and now, it's like that's how and why all of these, core teachings and from, religions, spiritual traditions, gurus, etc. It's all about, who am I? Who and how can I know myself? And when we do, then we are inherently connected with our own goodness, our own love, our own, power. And also, I think that something that's really cool. And I don't know, obviously I'm so imperfect in my humanness, but I'm able to more clearly see the divine goodness in all of humanity, even the stuff that's so difficult to see and so ugly and so violent and so hard to be with. We can kind of see through that sometimes very thick veil of humanness to see the core goodness that is the true nature from which all the ugly, chaotic humanness unfolds. And as we kind of see and relate to that divine nature in ourselves and in others, we just hopefully, I like to believe and think and feel that we are doing our part in creating a more peaceful and harmonious world rather than being and operating from the reactive, critical human nature. We honor and acknowledge that, but we do our best to also see beyond that, again, both within ourselves and in others, so that we can respond and relate and communicate from that deeper, more authentic place.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And some sources say that the third chakra is also associated with joy and generosity. And that's really what was coming to mind as you were talking about seeing the goodness in others, and connecting with the inherent perfection in all situations. It goes into just to name the third thing that I was bringing up from the Carolyn Miss book. The third thing was just maintaining your power, but specifically what she was talking about is that the moment we do start to criticize things around us, whether they're people or situation, or if we're criticizing ourselves, we start giving away our power. We just start handing out our power. In a sense, we're like pointing our finger at all these things around us, like, my life isn't so great because my house sucks, or because, my sister said this to me, or because that person cut me off, or whatever it is, right? We start just like, dishing out our power. But like you were saying, when we really can see the true nature of all human beings, and also trust like the goodness of the universe and what it provides in all of these situations that are here to just teach us, to just remind us who we are, then we maintain our power in every situation, right?
It's true.
Yeah.
And of course the slippery slope for us humans might be that we become self-critical and self-judgmental of our self-criticism or our judgmental nature. So it's like this cycle of, oh, I'm not good enough, but I'm okay, but I want to be better, but I'm not okay with my not okayness. And we can get like wrapped into that. So again, I think that it's so helpful to just understand the nature that is, prone to that cyclone of futile humanness and the backdrop in which that happens, so that we don't have to get in the way and try and stop our human nature from being human, but we can see and appreciate it with, new eyes. And in doing so, it's like, oh, then it kind of naturally kind of floats on through, and we get to just be more present with it.
Yeah.
So,
all right, well, let's wrap up this episode, and maybe we should do so by announcing to our podcast listeners that any day now we are expecting the birth of our little babe. We're so super excited. When the babe comes, we'll be taking a 2-week break from the podcast, and then Ben will be resuming the podcast solo.
That's right.
Yes, I'll be focusing on the babe. But chances are we'll be back next week for another 2 episodes. So we hope to see you next week for Medicinal Monday and Wisdom Wednesday. And in the meantime, if you're looking for more support, head over to our website, www.alter.health, and check out Thrive on Plants and the other services we have to offer.
All right, you guys, peace and love. We'll see you next week.
Bye for now.
Probably.